Hello everybody, welcome back to Killer Film Reviews. I'm your host today, Landedkiller. Today we'll be reviewing the film Eternals, which is a film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Let's go over our cast, shall we? Director Chloe Zhao is the one who directed the film. We have Gemma Chan as Cersei, Richard Madden as Icarus, Angelina Jolie as Athena, Salma Hayek as Ajak, Kit Harington as Don Whitman, Kumail Nanjiani as Kingo, Leah McHugh as Sprite, Brian Tyree Henry as Phaistos, Lauren Riddoff as Makari, Barry Kinohan as Druig, Ma Dong-seok, also known as Don Lee as Gilgamesh, Harish Patel as Karun, Bill Skarsgård as Crow, Harry Salzman as Ben, Ashley Cross as Jack, Harry Styles as Eros, Alan Scott as Patrick, Hanada as Sandra. This film is about a series of beings known as the Eternals, which carry out the will of the Celestials, pretty much. The key Celestial in this film being Erasim. Pretty much. Erasim's this big alien. He's like gigantic. He's like 3 Earths high, 3 Earths wide, kind of big. Very big, influential character in the series. The series basically, the Eternals film kind of bounces all over the place. First, it starts in Macedonia after the Eternals, they're told this false story that they're from this planet called Olympia, which is not true. You learn more about that as the film goes on, but basically they start on Macedonia where they're fighting the Deviants. Deviants are their sworn enemies. The Eternals basically have to sit here and fight off these Deviants throughout different historical periods. Now, if I'm remembering correctly, Macedonia, Gupta Empire, Babylon, I think perhaps Spanish Inquisition almost. No, it's about 1500 Spain, I want to say. Or no, it was Tenochtitlan, Mexico. That's what Mexico City was. That's where Mexico City is now, pretty much. The whole premise of basically the whole point of them fighting off the Deviants is that they're tasked to by Erasim to wipe out all the Deviants to ensure that humanity progresses, but they're given a rule to not interfere in human conflicts, which we see Makari, who is basically like a version of the Flash almost, pretty much. They got the red suit and everything, but she's deaf, so she can't hear much, so she goes by sensing vibrations. She can basically lip read pretty much, or of course do the hand sign language as well, which I thought was interesting addition to the film. I would like to see more actors who are deaf actually participate in more films in the MCU going forward. So basically, Makari's power is like speed, and then Druig's power is mind control. And Druig and Makari basically try to settle a dispute between some humans, and they succeed, but Druig is basically like, don't tell anybody. Makari's like, okay. With sign language, of course. Gilgamesh's power is basically raw strength. He hands out the punches, pretty much. Phastos' power is basically, he's like an engineer. He can mechanically put things together, pretty much, with his mind. Sprite basically knows how to project illusions and create illusions out of nothing, pretty much. Creates like theatrical shows, pretty much. Kingo has got like the laser gun thing going on. It's like he's firing energy bolts from his hands. Kind of acting Green Lantern-like, I guess. Alright, let me think here. Dan Whitman was not was not a key, was not an eternal. Ajax has some strength and whatnot. Strong in leadership, strong in compassion, that sort of thing. Athena is a warrior. It's not Athena for some reason, it's just Athena. I don't get that. But yeah, Athena basically is like a warrior, but she kind of freaks out when it's peacetime. She doesn't really know how to cope. Gilgamesh just kind of sort of guards her and helps her along the way. Athena has some sort of memory condition. Icarus is basically discount Superman, and honestly does not go out in the best way. It's kind of like the dumb brute that kind of just flies around and destroys stuff and doesn't really see much past that. Ceres's power is the ability to turn inanimate objects into different states or different things. Like she can turn sand into water, like a rock into a tree, that sort of a thing. Basically, throughout this film, you kind of see the Guardians split up. It's a really confusing plot thread to follow, honestly, because they keep going back to past, back to modern day. Like, they sort of scale up from the past. They go start from Macedonia, and they slowly scale up throughout the film. It's just really confusing plot points, because you would have thought that they would have started with the prologue stuff first and then went to the present storyline, as that would have made more sense. Instead, we hop around to different time periods without any sort of transition whatsoever. And it's really, really irritating, honestly. Like, I'm not going to say that the film is the most terrible film out there, but it's bad with the plot sequencing. The plot sequencing is all over the place, and I just really found that to be really annoying. I have no problem with Fastos' relationship with a significant other being male. I have no issues with that. I think that's fine, as long as it's maybe not the focus of the film, which this film actually did a good job of doing. That's fine if you want to have relationships like that. Just don't make it the whole focus of the film, is what I'm saying. Eternals does do a good job of not making that the whole focus of the film. I've seen Modern Family before. I'm open to seeing that sort of stuff on screen. What I don't like seeing on screen is stuff like in The Last Duel, where a forcible act is forced upon onto a woman. Obviously, I can't say the R word itself is at least a demonetization and all that, but yeah, Last Duel showed that scene way too many times. I don't even think it should have been in there at all, honestly, but I understand historical accuracy, all that sort of nonsense. Should have only been in there once. Alright, back to Eternals. So basically the whole dynamic is that this past storyline shows how they broke up, shows how basically over time they started disagreeing with Ajax and how they go about doing their stuff and how they want to interfere in human stuff. Jureg basically leads a whole bunch of mind-controlled Aztecs off somewhere, because he's just like done with it, and then slowly over time the rest of the group splits off. It goes all the way up until around 1945, where Fastos, I guess it's suggested that he assisted in the creation of the Manhattan Projects and the nuclear bomb, and he was sad about that. Then eventually, as we come to know in the present storyline, he finds his significant other, and they're raising a kid, pretty much. Honestly, you watch Modern Family, it's kind of the same way how they do the scene, pretty much. It's no biggie. You find that Kumal, or Kingo, I suppose I should say, Kingo is basically leading a fantastic Bollywood performance, which I thought was one of the highlights of the film. Cersei's off in London, pretty much, minding her own business, trying to hit up Dane Whitman for a relationship, pretty much. She's like a teacher and whatnot, like a history teacher. Icarus just comes into the scene, and they're fighting off the deviant, and then it goes from there where they're fighting off more deviants, trying to figure out. They find out that Ajax is dead. Obviously, it's pretty obvious who ended Ajax, and it wasn't a deviant. I'll let you figure that out for yourselves. I thought that the acting by Richard Madden was kind of dry. Didn't really feel like there was much depth to his character as I would have liked. Cersei, Gemma Chan, really excellent actress. Really liked her outfit. Like I was watching the behind the scenes, they kind of incorporate different patterns into it to represent the different cultures. Even on the ship itself, it looks more ancient and not modern. Going back to the plot, basically they're all trying to prevent the emergence of Tolmut, basically the new Celestial, trying to prevent his emergence. Pretty much, they try to wear him down. Icarus tries to go against him, pretty much, and basically gets beaten back by Phastos in a badass moment. I must say that is an excellent moment. Phastos is just, I'm tired of your stuff, Icarus. He just chains him down. I thought that was one of the best scenes in the movie, honestly, besides the Bollywood performance by Kingo there. And then we eventually discover who did away with Ajax in another confusing flashback sequence. Like, honestly, if they had to resequence this film, I would have done the past story first and then the present story. If that makes sense. Would have done it that way. They eventually do succeed, of course, and then we have Icarus just flying off into the sun for no reason, and Sprite having little to no consequences for what she does in the movie, which I found to be really stupid. I mean, she may have the appearance of a child, but she's like over 10,000 years old, very old at the point. So why isn't Sprite held accountable? Why isn't Sprite like put in prison, something? This really surprised me, honestly, about this film. It was a really confusing aspect of it for me. Let me think here. Oh yes, and then we have that silly end credit scene. I think one of my main issues with this film was just sequencing in general. It just didn't feel like they had enough time to put this film together properly. It felt rushed. Honestly, like, the Morbius feels like a better film slightly compared to this one. I mean, if they hadn't screwed up the sequencing, the plot sequencing of everything, then it would have been an okay film. It wouldn't have been a fantastic film, it would have been an okay film. I don't like when we have films that are bad and then we have the critics say, oh, they're good. That makes no sense to me. But for the future reference, whenever they make Eternals 2 or whatever, I hope that they learn from their mistakes with this film and they correct the sequencing and they do it the right way. Obviously, you know, the Tidemus is not great. Tidemus kind of rises somewhat, but doesn't rise all the way. Cersei subdues him with her powers, turning him to stone pretty much. Icarus goes off in the sun, kind of have like a sort of a happy ending, I guess, but not quite, because Eris, spoiler alert, of course, Erisum just shows up out of nowhere after they're trying to do their stuff, they're trying to move on, and basically just nabs Cersei and the rest of the cast, while Thena, Sprite, and Phastos are on the plane there, on their little spaceship, and they're away from everything, but everybody else gets snatched. Gilgamesh, of course, passes away in this film. Tarun was a funny part of it. He kind of serves as comedic relief through most of the film with his camera, as he's the producer for Kingo and their Bollywood scene. Eros' entrance kind of felt rushed as well. I don't understand why we're having more celebrities in the acting list. I don't think we need more celebrities. I think we need more newer talent, like how Robert Downey Jr. was kind of like that. You know, the beginning of the MCU, he got good actors out of the more newer folk. Have some established people in there, but don't just make it all established Hollywood actors and actresses. You gotta incorporate more newer faces into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Critical Journey kind of just plays all this off as discount this, discount that in a new video he has on the Thor Love and Thunder. Honestly, there's a lot of stuff that they could have done better with this. Honestly, if I had to give this film like a rating out of 10, I'd rate this more like a 6 out of 10 like Dracula Untold. It clearly could use a recut and resequencing of some of the plot elements of this film to make it all make more sense, because it feels like it's moving from place to place to place without really explaining it. I'll put it this way, I feel like this film should have been split into 2 parts. Part 1 focusing on what happened in the past, and then Part 2 focusing on what's going on in the present. I feel like it would have been worth their time to do that. Please, for Eternals 2, take your time. Chloe Zhao, do not rush it. As for the future of the MCU, I already got my tickets booked for Doctor Strange 2. Thor Love and Thunder looks kind of iffy at the moment. I kind of have a bad vibe about the film. I hope I'm wrong. As for future killer film reviews, we're gonna have possibly We Crashed and the Moon Knight. We're gonna have both those as killer TV reviews in the future. I'm already up through episode 7 of We Crashed, so that'll probably be coming out first before Moon Knight at this point. But it's a really interesting documentary on the whole WeWork company, so I'll be putting that out on the channel in the future. I'm gonna try to mix things up occasionally and throw in an occasional good documentary, I guess, a reenactment sort of a thing, I guess. But I want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to watch this video. Please subscribe to all my channels. I put in a lot of effort in all my videos, and I appreciate all of you who subscribe. Have a nice day, and I'll see you on the next killer film review. Thank you.